Hello, hello, and welcome back to episode 11 of High Lit with Karhlyle Fletcher. I'm your host, Karhlyle Fletcher, and today we're gonna get into, the normal show. We're gonna be covering cannabis and insurance, and the importance of having cannabis available as a alternative medicine in countries as a normalized option. Then we're gonna go into a conversation about the city structure of America, The Gay Science by Friedrich Nietzsche. Then we're finishing off with my boys' flight patterns and running shoes. And then Sophie's Floorboard, which is a really important blog to me. Grew up with them. I think every single rock band they've covered. So at least for rock, fucking awesome. So that's a show for today. Let's pull it up. Obviously, yeah, the camera's still fritzing out. I don't know. Probably not. Yeah. So in a global cannabis market, U.S. can no longer lead, must follow. I published this back in December 1st with Cannabis Tech. Crippled by federal legalization or lack thereof, the U.S. cannabis industry is losing ground in the international market. 2020 has ushered in a new era of the cannabis industry where Colorado's legalization is old news. Now the international cannabis trade is flourishing between countries with federal legalization, yet America is stuck with archaic limitations. The international situation for federal legalization is rapidly shifting. After the crises of 2020, many governmental budgets are hurting. Due to this stress, eyes around the world are resting on cannabis as a lucrative industry, possibly to balance some of the losses from a devastating year. Such reasoning is shared by cannabis advocates and lawmakers in Australia, Texas, and Germany, pushing federal legalization. However, up to now, their proposals have been met with mixed results. Germany's push for adult-use cannabis has outright failed. Texas Republicans are offering much resistance, and the outcome of the Australian effort has yet to be seen. And yet, at the same time, Mexico has made significant ground with a bill for federal legalization of cannabis approved by the Senate now making its way through the rest of the government. In the words of the president, things do not need to be prohibited. If something is authorized, if something is allowed, well, act responsibly. I believe that this will happen in the new legislation on the use of cannabis. Have confidence in people and seek to do good. If this bill passes, then Mexico will be the largest federally legal cannabis market in the world. After the U.S. federal legalization bill was postponed in September, the House will vote for it in one of two congressional sessions, either in December. So this is dated news, but I still think it's relevant as a setting for what we're headed into. Also fucking hilarious in a sick way where it's PC culture just really can't reach that far. Where the marijuana as a term was popularized by people like Henry Anslinger, who were misaligning cannabis as a substance used by minority and jazz fans. So marijuana was actually a form of tobacco that came from Mexico. And the reason why it's marijuana is that it was a Spanish word used by Mexicans to describe a certain kind of tobacco. I guess racial advocates like Henry Anslinger then used that word applied to cannabis to, scare people by associating it in such a way. And then, so that's why I don't use the word. I think that it is a very useless word. I think it comes with a lot of baggage and it's not even scientifically accurate. Whereas cannabis has been used since time immemorial. But it's just funny to see the Mexican president drop that marijuana. Just yeah, bro, marijuana. International trade already flourishes with American federal legalization. Israel is making deals to export to France, Germany, and Australia. Meanwhile, Canada is exporting to Poland. East Africa is poised to become a major cannabis exporter. And Clever Leans alone, so this is one company, is exporting to Australia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, the Czech Republic, Germany, Israel, Netherlands, Peru, Poland, Spain, South America, United Kingdom, and the United States. That's 14 fucking countries. International trade is here. That's one company. They're making the money. They're working with a diverse amount of markets. Are diverse. You got Chile, you got Canada, you got Poland, you got South Africa. This is a wide region. Not only has cannabis exporting come online, but it's a thriving industry. And with Canada having passed federal legalization some time ago, Mexico likely to do the same. With Mexico likely to do the same, the United States may lose its position as a leader in the field. At this point, it's already a laggard. Private business have realized the opportunity and were quick to grow wherever they were allowed to in such places as South Africa, Malawi, Uzbekistan, or Denmark. Yet, while Uruguay contemplates selling cannabis to tourists, American opponents of cannabis are trying to overturn election results from November 3rd, where it's like South Dakota and things like that. People were trying to block legalization. So from the island of Man to Thailand, the potential of the cannabis industry are being realized. So America cannot afford to keep dragging its feet. However, hopefully the newly founded Cannabis Regulators Association can help usher in legalization, or at least compliance, and thus an era of prosperity in American agriculture. So, CBD, EU declared CBD is not a narcotic. Thailand has removed cannabis from the list of narcotics, and the Thai health minister publicly stated, so this is an official government, employee, so that at least 70% of patients report their symptoms improving after medical cannabis, and 98% reported no, at least noticeable side effects. So while the American government is like hesitating with all this stuff, Canada gave 25 mil in federal wage subsidies to the cannabis industry due to the 2020 crisis. So due to, but like still, incredibly fertile farmland, massive population, massive wealth, massive talent. We could still come back. America could still lead, but it is like, this idea that America is this mecca for the development of cannabis, or that it's like, leading the world, that it's like really where all the market is. It's like, we might have that position currently, but we really have to tread carefully, because it's about as fun to go to Denmark as it is to go to LA. It smells better and the people are nicer. So the idea that we're going to be able to maintain cannabis tourism forever, I think is just hubris. And like, it's like, we really need to look at what we're doing, get serious, and like establish a legal and medical threshold that legitimizes the industry, or else we will be an interesting footnote in the history of cannabis, but no longer one of the main names. So that's why I think that is an important thing to discuss. So health insurance for cannabis is a modern must. As more people find medical benefit from cannabis, will insurance companies ever support plant-based medicine? From alcoholism to opiate addiction and other chronic conditions like arthritis and pain, it's evident that insurance companies are under a lot of stress to provide adequate service. While medications and treatment can be costly, cannabis can be a more simplistic, organic, and cost-effective treatment for many conditions. In Ireland, doctor prescribed Alicia Maher, 37, 30 tablets a day, including painkillers, due to having had many surgeries, including her large intestines and rectum removed. In 2018, she started using a cannabis vape from the black market and immediately noticed a difference. While the pills left her feeling sleepy, drained, and unable to live the life she wanted to, cannabis was gentler and less intrusive. The Minister of Health approved her license for medical cannabis. However, while the insurance would cover her pills, which cost 900 euros a month, and her several surgeries, they refused to cover cannabis, which cost 2,000 euros every 3 months. So, I mean, god damn it, that's less than 900 a month. So 918, 27, so it's $700 less. So due to this Irish citizen has remained in Spain, where she can afford her preferred medicine. So Tom Kieran, probably at this point, founded the Irish Medicinal Cannabis Council to address these sort of situations. The goals of the council will include ensuring prescriptions for medical cannabis are funded in the same way as other medicines without change for those with a medical card or on the long-term illness scheme. Changing the laws to allow trace amounts of THC and CBD products to include raw flavor for vaporization in the approved cannabis medicines, and to expand the list of conditions covered under the Medical Cannabis Access Program, notably so it includes chronic pain. Currently, the state only refunds cannabis prescriptions, so it already does refund them. It already does refund, so it pays for your weed. For multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, and nausea from chemotherapy. However, in Northern Ireland, things can be more difficult. Although Billy Caldwell, a teenager in the region, was finally awarded a lifetime prescription, the NHS has repeatedly refused to supply funding for whole plant cannabis oils for children with epilepsy. Some families have to raise 2,000 euros a month themselves, or 2,000 pound? because these are euros, I think, yeah, it's pound, a month themselves because of this. Citing a lack of information, the NHS is hesitant to provide cannabis-based medicine to anyone. People who receive it were the subject of significant media attention, which is very imbalanced and against the spirit of inclusivity and equity. So I think that $2,000 or £2,000 here refers to this person, this being, yeah, the NHS. This is Northern Ireland. And I'm assuming when we're talking about this case, we're talking about Southern Ireland because they're using the euro. Just correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I don't want to look like an idiot, but... What conditions could insurance address with cannabis? Opiates have decimated regions of the world throughout past decades, and especially the Rust Belt. With joblessness combined with the availability of prescription drugs, heroin, and more recently fentanyl, many fall into addiction. However, with several key states, including Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, having legalized THC for at least some purposes, there's hope for alternative treatment. According to a study on 61 patients with back pain who used opiates published in September 2020, over 50% were able to stop all opiate usage by using medical cannabis. Considering this research and the availability of cannabis in the region, lawmakers would be wise to consider federal legalization so that the conversation on insurance companies covering cannabis for getting patients off opiates can begin. Similarly, the University of Victoria found that 43.5% of participants in a study were able to reduce their drinking through the use of medical cannabis. However, in the words of Felipe Lucas, Tilray's vice president of global patients research and access, the University of Victoria researcher who led the study, cost is still a significant barrier to access, as is lack of availability via pharmacies. So again, 7.8% of patients ceased drinking within the last month using cannabis, and again, Thailand supporting it. So while the insurance companies and health systems may be wary of adopting cannabis as treatment, the science is behind it. GW Pharmaceuticals, the company behind Epidiolex and Sativex, leading cannabinoid medicines, is now recruiting for phase 2 clinical trials for treating both autism and schizophrenia. Sativex is being prescribed for multiple sclerosis outside the country, but clinical trials are just starting in the U.S. Cannabis is no longer a potential medicine, but a proven one. As cannabis companies that adapt to eco-friendly policies early are poised to win big through incentives and rebates, insurance companies willing to work with cannabis will win over many loyal and adoring consumers. So, the point that we're making here is that cannabis is broken into the mainstream. I feel like I don't need to prove that further to you. This also needs to be a fixed angle. Sorry about that. I was looking at this screen and not that screen, so I got a bad read on the image. Oh no. But yeah, so the cannabis is already here. It's already a mainstream industry. It's making big bucks. So the idea that you have this niche industry, it's like, dude, China's in it, Israel's in it, South Africa's in it, Peru's in it, Mexico's in it, Canada's in it. Like the idea, everybody, there's a huge cultural shift that is currently occurring that is way deeper and way more extensive than simply Colorado and California. So there's something going on which matters more than just, the hippie movement or just like cannabis for the sake of, cultural, like just music. It's not just about the cultural. Oh, it makes things cooler. It's about like, no, dude, like it's happening. We're here. Other countries are already like in the Czech Republic. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll just pull it up. New window. So let's see. Czech increase cannabis 400. Yup. So here we go. So it's 400%. So year on year, the Czech Republic is prescribing, people are using it. So 90% of the cost of cannabis, this is a recent development, 90% of the cost of cannabis is covered by their health insurance, which means that there's an increase of 400% of people medically using cannabis who are using it in a medical setting with the acknowledgement from their doctor, with the support of their country for conditions getting off of other substances. So I think that is a huge thing to just look at, when it's looking at Ireland is already covering these things. And I believe we do cover some things for like, chemotherapy and things like that. But there's a larger opportunity here that we would be fools not to fully understand or take advantage of. This is where I think it should be really focused on as a state issue. I think that as Michigan, particularly with Ann Arbor, we could really lead this conversation. But I don't really know where we're going to go with it federally. I think that federal, like, kind of in the way that I understand, and this is just a guess, it's like nobody knows what's going on. But in my understanding, you have the federal government on the cannabis issue and you have the state governments on the cannabis issue. So the federal government basically has a sit back, watch, and see policy where they let Colorado legalize, they let California, they let, I think the majority of states at this point, pretty sure like it's a strong majority at this point, have some sort of legal cannabis program, although it's federally illegal. And so I think that they're kind of just letting the experiments happen on a state level, on a smaller level. So if they see something that's truly successful and like really, really great and really, really firm, they'll then like recreate or reintroduce or like basically copy those laws with some slight alterations for the federal. But I think that a state has to get there first. So I think we're still within like a 10 to 20 year period where although there might be like a federal approval, I don't think we're going to see the federal government understand it until a state really makes a culture that is understandable. And that's where it's like I think that as Americans we could talk about some state, probably Washington, Oregon, Michigan, Illinois could be another likely one, where it's just like research forward and also willing to put cannabis on the insurance policies, therefore allowing real research to get done with demographics on like state-grown, state-tested cannabis for specific conditions they talked about with their doctor. And then if you can see that and pair that with clinical research, I feel like you can really get to a serious conversation about this, where it's like you can talk about the bad, you can talk about the good, just like any other medicine. So, in addition, all of these, both of these cannabis tech articles, obviously me, and then this one on Fresh Toast is me as well. And so the largest barrier to medical cannabis use in Florida, it's not the doctors or the patients who stand against the adoption of cannabis medicine. Instead, it's outdated legislation. According to a recent study, the largest barrier to cannabis use is an average cost of $200 to $300 a month, which is not covered at all by insurance. 89% said they had a regular doctor, yet only 9% said the doctor was the same one who prescribed medical cannabis. And most people said that their doctors were with it, so it's not the doctors, it's not the patients. So this was people treating it for depression, which is, as we've reviewed lightly, that it is effective for chronic pain, which we have reviewed several times, that it's effective for arthritis, which we will review, nausea, spasms, epilepsy, etc., and migraines. So these conditions comprise 70% of those listed by patients, but otherwise it was anxiety, PTSD, insomnia, and IBS. There's also interesting, we were talking about the gut microflora and things like that. So there's interesting studies on gut health and autism, and also cannabis affecting gut health positively. All that's fascinating. So one person from the study, so a patient, explained, I think they can afford to give me $300 to $400 a month for me to buy my cannabis. How many dollars is Medicare and insurance companies saving because we voluntarily left the racket, and we're saving our own money and we're not getting any reimbursement at all? We can't claim it on our taxes. We can't get reimbursement anywhere. That's not right. It's not even a tax write-off. You're getting no benefit from doing something more responsible. So it's like, again, like the fucking government will tell you to meditate like they did like 2-3 years ago, but they won't support you in healthy decisions. A female patient further illustrated the poor access, stating, we don't have access to all the cool strains that South Florida and Eastern Florida have. I don't know why, because of the same dispensaries, they just don't give us the products that other places have, and they don't stock it. I mean, it's truly the main place here in Florida. Why on earth don't they stock their dispensaries up here? Why are we less important than South Florida? So, you're just... The problem with cannabis in America is not cannabis, it's not people, it's not the public, it's not the professionals, it's not medical, it's not medicine. It's cultural and infrastructure, and I believe we cannot build the infrastructure until there is cultural acceptance or normalization. So that's where I'm harping on this hard information, and I keep straw manning this person who is talking about cannabis as if it is not a serious substance. Is that it's like if we have the infrastructure, we're going to be seeing the same results that everywhere else is seeing. We just don't, it's like because we have the first off, the attitude of being a drug addict. Second off, we have a history of literally policing cannabis unfairly, where it's like we have people locked up in life sentences for weed, you know, so it's like obviously our environment's a bit fucking different. Europe and Israel have been researching cannabis for decades. Meanwhile, it's like we are just really, you know, it's like we have a very fucked up situation at hand. I think that really what we need to do is, it's gonna be funny, but we just need to deregulate. I would say cannabis on a federal level, what would be the most important and most effective thing that the federal government could do is repeal all federal regulation tomorrow. So it's just like kick out all federal regulation of cannabis, and then from there reinstate FDA standards. So it's like no pesticides, no metals, no, you know, contaminants. You know, so it's like just sheerly make the regulation based on FDA standards. So it's like safe to consume, and also safe for smoking purposes and things like that. But past that, I don't think the federal government has any understanding of how to relevantly exist within this industry. They should just tax it, take free money, and be grateful for their free money. Anyways, interesting. This is what I was talking about some time ago. So they did a 387 person study of adolescents aged 15 to 18. And what they found is that more self-reported exercise at baseline predicted greatest cannabis use frequency at 6-month follow-up, but did not predict the presence of a cannabis abuse or cannabis-related problems. But baseline exercise did not predict better decision-making. Decision-making did not predict cannabis use outcomes, and indirect effects of decision-making were not significant. So, contrary to the hypotheses, adolescents reporting more exercise at baseline also reported higher cannabis use frequency in our sample. And they're just saying like, but it's like, to me, that points out that it's like the people who are using cannabis aren't the dropout loser types. They're people who actually, to me, it seems really, in my experience, your mileage may vary, it's work hard, play hard types, where it's like the people who I would identify with this kind of use of cannabis, and these are my best friends who use cannabis this kind of way. It's not smoking all day into a stupor. It's you love being incredibly productive, whether that's carpentry or that's driving, and I don't mean, you know, it's like truck driving, or it's like, you know, reading, or it's like, you know, like just fucking anything, doing something very focused, and then after you're done that, you smoke pot. You know, it's like, that's like the sort of, you got the focused brain and then you got the relaxing brain, and like it just helps transition between these things. Everybody else I know sober is a little bit too, you know, just on their thing, you know, and it's just like, it's nice to see something that allows them to unwind and take away, or like to relax from that. Because even with people who exercise a lot, it's like, oh my god, it's so good for anxiety. It's like, yeah, but they can be a little bit fucking aggro, bro. So then, like, weed does help. And then here again we have people who are using it for pain. I think we've already went through this, but THC was related to pain-related improvements, while CBD was related to improved mood. So, you know, like there's a lot of very worthwhile and I would say strong research that needs to be discussed. And we need to talk about insurance, and it's just weird because it's like, I don't mean to be like preaching about it or pretending. It's not, I'm not on my moral high horse. I'm on my we're missing out on an economic activity shit. You know, I'm not concerned because I'm like, oh my god, we're not doing cannabis justice. It's like, bro, if we don't take care of this, we're gonna lose our advantage, and we've been sitting with an advantage for like 20 years now. I think that really a decade. Because that's like when you have the California, Michigan, like all these states like transforming, Colorado, Washington, like really getting a hold of driving this American consumer level cannabis. And it's like, yeah, we have done great things with the progression of, you know, cannabis's potential as potency and things like that in the last 20 years. But you can't just sit on that forever. With the people having the more stable research environments, with the people having like professionals and all these things, that's what's really gonna win it over. And I guess what might save us, what might be our saving grace in the American cannabis environment, is all the cannabis college programs and all the cannabis degrees that are now being offered. So I suppose that could be something that makes it all right. But, you know, that's just where I really hope that we play our cards right. I just really don't want to see us fuck up our position. And that's about all. that's about all on that one. Another thing, so I would like to bring up again the Not Just Bikes channel. And this video in particular, obviously, link in the description. Please check it out. Please check them out. And so I have some notes on the video. But this is a discussion about the growth of the car-dependent suburb and the further decentralization of American cities, so America, everybody thinks that America has the sprawling cities because it has so much space and because it's such a big country, but that's not necessarily true, because in the first, everything except for the last century, all American cities were dense. Think about San Francisco, think about Boston, think about Chicago. All of these things very close together, bundled together cities that have high population, but they develop normally. And then when you get into the sprawls of highway and interconnected suburbs, that's really, post-war, Cold War sort of era America. So that was a choice. That was a choice by the American government to reform all of our cities like that. Before, they looked more like this. And I'll say one of those things is house zoning. So it's in other cities you have these flexible buildings where something can be a building, or something can be an office, it can be a store, it can be a house, it can be even a makeshift hospital in war times. It depends on what these buildings are needed for. Essentially, it's almost like the city is one big building. It's because all the buildings are so connected and so together, and all the people are part of essentially the same hive mind that you're making use of the space as you need to make use of the space. We all understand where it's at. But if you have the zoning laws in America, you have this issue where it's I'm going to use some language that might be a little bit funny here, but I think it proves the point, is that diversity is more profound than skin deep. Single zoning zones for buildings kill the idea of a diversity, or the idea of a public coming together from different places, because you have the housing and you have the businesses and you have the hospitals, and you have you're putting all of these things separated, which is also, by that way, separating the low working class from the higher working class, because the higher working class can afford to live in these business districts that have vast majority, 95% parking and businesses, but 5% residential. So maybe a really successful business owner will live there. Meanwhile, somebody who owns a taco truck is going to have to live further out in these residential areas that are zoned just to be residential, isolating them from being able to be connected with these different, it's the further stratification of class by these zoning regulations, and by cutting up cities in this way, it no longer allows people to just mix together and make a monoculture that is influenced by everybody, because everybody isn't interacting anymore, because they don't live together anymore. So if you look at traditional cities in America, so I'm going to use the Detroit model, just because I'm familiar with it. If you look at something like Eastern Market, you will see that this is obviously it's a business place. It's called fucking Market, right? So it's got all these businesses, and it's a place that holds fair, but there's also a lot of apartments not apartments, but just building, lofts and things like that. And a lot of those things I could easily imagine converted either way. Either into a business place or into a housing space, and that's Detroit. And it's a flexible place, and it's relatively old. But you can have that sort of living, and still there's room for everybody, because the richest people can run a really high end business, or they can manage the fare. Meanwhile, the people without as much income can live it in as a residential zone or things like that, and the people who are the lowest on the residential income could just get a good meal, or just hang out and see a pretty part of town. So it allows access for everybody, and it's all the same blocks. It's not you have to go to the businesses or go to the housing. It's you're hanging out in a place with businesses, and there's some doors you can go in and then hang out and visit your friend. That sort of flexibility in architecture, again, I think promotes real diversity, because past the skin deep thing, where it's obviously I think that this is going to cause a lot of different sort of people to mix. It also makes different classes of people and different things like that. So you have I think with that comes the diversity of skin color, obviously, but also diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of culture, because if you have something like that, everybody's interested in it, so everybody's attracted to being a part of it, which allows it to assimilate the widest number of attributes, because everybody is willfully and happily contributing to it. And so I think that the only way forward from the situation we're in right now is to properly tax the suburbs. As Not Just Bikes says, the work from Strong Towns, which is another group of people, but Strong Towns does the numbers, and like they show that this is bankrupting the cities because the cities cannot afford to replace the infrastructure of the average suburban home. The average suburban home is simply not taxed at a high enough rate. They'd have to have their taxes increased by like 43%, or even higher, to pay for the road replacements, to pay for the water purification, to pay for the water pipes and all these things, because we're not looking at the thing like we're not looking at this in front of us. You know, like this is a city. The water pipes go between all of these buildings, and the electric goes in all of these buildings. Like, you're not going through fields of things to access these, you know? It's just right next to each other. Meanwhile, in this, which is a dense suburban area, you still have all this useless fucking yard space that you have to dig up and then put shit in. So that even that makes the money cost more. But these roads here, while built for free for the city at first, by the development, like, you know, so it's like they get that. This is going to cost, this is what that graph that they were talking about here, this is where it's like, so for the first 25 years, which is the life cycle of the road, they're going to be making money in taxes, but after that, having to replace the road, each point is going to cost more and more money. And then, like, just look at the development of American cities, and I feel like you can viscerally feel this, especially as somebody who lives in the Detroit metro and has just, like, you know, I've never owned a car in my life. You know, so I've walked and I've taken buses and I've seen the infrastructure on the ground level. I've seen the infrastructure of the city. I've also seen the highways, of course. I've been in cars. You know, I can take an Uber, or like a lot of the people in my life own cars. It's also the most effective way to get around. But still, I have that experience on the base level of the infrastructure project. We have way more fucking roads than we need. We need businesses. We need schools. We need adequate environments. We need something that is like safe for children to walk around. And yet we have millions and millions, not millions, but it feels like fucking millions of miles of concrete. You know, and it's just like, it's not even good concrete. It's not even good in condition. It's just these roads that hardly anybody uses that are falling apart. Meanwhile, like, we can't have, it's just, you know, the money's burning. The money's burning, and this is the city. You know, so when you get into the actual suburbs, I can only imagine how much fucking money they're setting on fire. That's fucked. You know, so it's like, I think that it's just, the only way to move forward is to properly tax the suburbs, because once you put this pressure, the pressure of these rates off the city onto the individual taxpayer, people would flee right back into the city. They'd flee right back into the city. They left the city because it was cheaper, and if you made it more expensive to be suburban, they'd be right back here, baby. They'd be right the fuck back here. And that would make it, that would be reinvestment into the cities, into specifically, especially the cities that saw the suburban flight. Repopulation, the return of the economy, and the re-densification of cities. So you have a tax base in cities again, which then would therefore lower city taxes even further past the suburban tax. Because you'd have people, because it's like in Detroit, we have a population that's going down again of like 680,000 people. 100,000 people. 680,000, fucking my life. I hate math. I hate being dysgraphic and dyslexic and all that shit. But 680,000 people. We used to have 1.8 million. So we're a third of the population that we used to be. So taxes are fucked and things are fucked. You know, the city just doesn't work the way it can. But if you so the Southeast Michigan is one of the top 10 richest regions of the world. If those cities around us properly taxed those individuals for the cost of infrastructure and for holding up the quality of life and the development out there, I believe that they would come back here and we'd get like at least like a milli back, you know. And like once you have like 1 million people in Detroit, radically going to transform the city, you're gonna see just neighborhoods repair and like things prop up, and like you're gonna have the reinvestment. It's like, I think that this is really what we need to do to fix things. Because it's not welfare states. Like, people always have this argument where it's like, you know, the fucking, everybody in the fucking big blue cities relies on handouts. And then like, oh my God, the red states are actually the real welfare states. Blah, 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 blah. It's not welfare states. It's not welfare cities. It's welfare suburbs. It's welfare suburbs. Because cities and farms take care of themselves. If you have a place that has like a large population on welfare that needs assistance, at the same time as you have the most successful people in society there, they can afford an internal network for the city to afford that welfare program, because you have the most incredible wealth creation, and you have the most incredible wealth, like what is the word? You have the most incredible poverty. So between those two, it makes sense to have a network sustained by the city, because that can make sense in the economy. And then in the farmland, you either have communities taking care of one another, or you have self-sufficient people by and large. So farmland, rural communities, and urban communities are self-sustaining and take care of themselves. Suburban communities are where you start to get these massive bankruptcy cycles. You get zoning laws where there's no businesses, so they have no economic production. They cost so much fucking money to maintain. There's no quality of life there because you cannot walk to anything. There's no access to people. None of these people know their fucking neighbors. There's not even a church. You know, like, so it's like real, and like also like keep in mind real suburbs we call the city. We call urban. Because when you're talking about like when you're talking about streetcar suburbs, yeah, you're talking about North End in Detroit, which is considered a part of fucking downtown. You know, you're talking about Michigan Martin. I think you're talking about like Ferndale and Dearborn eventually, but that's through the process of building up that. That's why you'll see downtown, which is like on the other side of all the highways, like that one region of Detroit is densely urbanized. That part is an urban city. Every single thing that grew out of the wheel is a streetcar suburb, and that's why you have these sorts of style lots. That's why Detroit looks less like this, because downtown looks kind of like this, but Detroit does not look like this. Detroit looks like this if a lot of the houses burn down. So our style of architecture is much more suburban, because you can notice we have lawns. You know, this is about the same lot size as your average Detroit home outside of downtown. And so that's why it's like, I don't know, like suburbs aren't bad. Car-dependent, isolated, single zoning use suburbs are bad, because all of the streetcar suburbs in Detroit have liquor stores, churches, and some sort of business, whether that be a truck or something. You know, so it's like they're able to have mixed zoning, mixed sorts of kinds of people, and they're able to support themselves with this. Meanwhile, suburbs outside of that, not so much, fucking bankrupt. And that's the wow, this is new. This is new. We just have a frozen half of the camera. I guess I'm going to move over here. This is insane. How does that happen? I don't really even know. I don't know when that happened or what to do. Maybe I can. Let's line it up again. That's funny. Isn't that funny? This is hilarious. What is wrong with this GoPro? It didn't even drop. That's funny, though. Yeah, it's glitching the fuck out. Is it hot? I don't think so. Anyways, no, I'll stop fucking around. I'll come over here. But yeah, so that was that. Please go watch this video. It's fucking amazing. Last things to get through today. This is so weird. What? You saw it here first, folks. You saw it here first. So I guess we'll just read a little bit of Nietzsche, and then we'll just. What the fuck? High lip, baby. Yo. So this is Nietzsche's The Gay Science. I said we're going to go through it. I don't stop my fucking show. Take a chance and try my fare. It will grow on you, I swear. Soon it will taste good to you, if by then you should want more. All the things I've done before will inspire things quite new. So that's one. That was invitation. 2, my happiness. Since I grew tired of the chase and search I learned to find, and since the wind blows in my face, I sail with every wind. Undaunted. 3. Where you stand, dig deep and pry. Down there is the well. Let the obscurance cry. Down there's only hell. 4. Dialogue. Was I ill? Have I got well? Who was my doctor? Can you tell? Oh, my memory is rotten. B. Only now you're truly well. Those are well who have forgotten. 5. The virtuous. To the virtuous. Why should our virtues be grave? We like ours nimble-footed. Even like Homer's verse, they have to come and go. 6. Worldly wisdom. Do not stay in the field, nor climb out of sight. The best view of the world is from a medium height. 7. Euro words I don't know. Lured by my style and tendency, you follow and come after me. Follow your own self faithfully. Take your time, and thus you follow me. So I feel like this is like, there's that fucking fake Camus quote about, don't follow me, just stand beside, or just walk beside me and be my friend. That one's fake. That one basically does the same thing and is legitimate. So take this one if you want to be that edgy guy who's trying to reference that. 8. Shedding the third skin. My skin is cracking as the snake. Inside me lust as if it had not eaten enough earth to slake its thirst with more earth. Between blade and stem I crawl, far from the beaten track, hungry and yet full of mirth, to eat what I have always eaten. You, fair of snakes, you, earth. 9. My roses. Yes, my joy wants to amuse, every joy wants to amuse. Would you like to pick my roses? You must stoop and pick your noses, between thorn and rocky views, and not be afraid of bruises. For my joy enjoys good teases, for my joy enjoys good ruses. Would you like to pick my roses? 7. Scorn. There's much I drop and spill, I am full of scorn, you think. If your beaker is too full, there must be... Excuse me. There is much you drop and spill, without scorning what you drink. 11. The proverb speaks. Sharp and mild, rough and fine, strange and familiar and pure and clean. A place where fool and savage convene. All this I am and wish to mean, dove as well and snake and swine. If you don't want your eyes and mind to fade, pursue the sun while walking in the shade. 13. For dancers. Smooth ice is paradise for those who dance with expertise. It's expertise, but... 14. The good man. Better a wholehearted feud than a friendship that is glued. Rust. You need some rust. Sharpness does not suffice, else you will seem too young and too precise. I like that one. Up. If you want to get to the peak, you ought to climb without giving it much thought. 17. The maxim of the brute. Never ask, why cry and shake? Please, I ask you, simply take. Narrow souls. Narrow souls I cannot abide. There's almost no good or evil inside. The involuntary seducer. He shot an empty word just for a ball into the blue and made a woman fall. 20. For your consideration. Double pain is easier to bear than single pain. Do you accept my dare? So we did 20 lines. I gotta fucking get into this side of the frame. Hello, my name's Karhlyle Fletcher. I love technology. It's fucking amazing. Anyways, yeah, so that's the first 20 lines of this poetic segment. First 20 stanzas or something. But, yeah, I love these poems. I think they're really cool. I don't really... With Nietzsche, it's difficult to exposit or, like, build upon what he says, because I feel like he's pretty self-explanatory. He's kind of like an angry guy that just hates people who think they know things. Basically Socrates, who was a poet instead of a fuck-off. I think that there's something about Nietzsche's style here I think it's much more accessible, you know, because it's like I feel like with the topics that he chooses for his debates and for his philosophical writing can be a little bit iffy, you know. They can be a little bit not iffy, but a little bit what's the word? They can be a little bit they can make people angry. They can reach people on an emotional level, which I don't think is necessarily what's supposed to happen or the best outcome for his work, because I don't think that it's flattering to him, and I don't think it's flattering to the things that he is discussing. When you're talking about things like the death of God, you shouldn't really be understanding them as a debate. Like, it's not like, I don't think that you need to argue with Nietzsche as much as it's interesting to see somebody who was a professor in his 20s of ancient Greek and what he thinks about the state of Europe as he lived and where it's headed and things like that. Because when you're talking about the death of God, you're not talking about that God is no longer or is not a valuable concept. He's talking about Europe kind of falling out of love with the idea and morality falling towards a more selfish purpose where it's like, you know, a woman is more likely to say, well, my body is my own through individual rights because property rights dictate that the individual is owned by the individual. Therefore, my body is my own, and if I would like to make a profit off of it, that's my prerogative, and that's what I should do, despite the despite the resistance or the commentary from my community and family. And that's sort of like the death of God. Not to say that God isn't real, but it's to say that there's no longer this appeal towards modesty or this appeal towards the morality of your actions. A young man might think that it's like, hey, like, it's like literally crime and punishment. Like, I could get away with stealing my neighbor's like $5,000 car, go drive that to Oklahoma, sell that in Oklahoma, and then go to Vegas and drop that money on blackjack and hopefully make enough money to then, skip town and live somewhere new. And it's like, I understand that I'm a dramatist because, it's like I'm a novelist and my background is in telling a story with, telling a story with a kind of drama to it. But, like, at the same time, I don't think that those are unrealistic portraits, and I think that that reflects what we're talking about when we're talking about the death of God. We're not talking about a debate of the epistemology of God's relevance or things like that. And I think that's a more interesting conversation. And when you understand him as a historian and you understand him as somebody within the placement of the debate of Western philosophy, I think he's a much more fascinating person, a much more fascinating writer than if you just take him seriously and are like, oh my God, I need to either accept what Nietzsche preached at me or I need to disprove him as a false prophet. Like that, like, who gives a fuck, bro? He's fucking funny. He's got some good poems. Like, it's literally, he drops bangers. It's like the same thing with Kanye, where it's like, well, Kanye's crazy. It's like, yeah, no shit. That's fine. That's fine. Do he make music good? He make music good? Oh, well, shit. I guess we're on the same page and I like him. So, I guess we'll get to 30. 21, against heirs. Those who inflate themselves are cursed, when pricked by a small pin to burst. 22, man and woman. Seize forcibly the wench for whom you feel. Thus thinks a man. Women don't rob, they steal. All right, that's actually okay. That's much better. I thought I was gonna have to defend my boy, but actually, I like that. That one. Okay, yeah. Women are more manipulative with steal, and men are more like raping. Interpretation. Interpreting myself, I always read myself into books. I clearly need some help, but all who climb on their own way carry my own image too into the breaking day. 24. Medicine for pessimist. Nothing tastes good to you, my friend. I'm tired of your belly aching. You spit, rage, slander without end. My patience and my heart are breaking. I have a remedy. Just follow my good advice and rest assured. A toad is what you need to swallow, and your dyspepsia will be cured. 25. Request. The mind of others I know well, but who I am, I cannot tell. My eye is much too close to me. I am not what I saw and see. I would be quite a benefit if only I could sometimes sit farther away, but my foes are too distant, close friends still too far, between my friends and me. The middle would do. My wish, you guess my riddle. 26. My hardness, 100 steps I have to climb. I must ascend, but here you groan. You're cruel. Are we made of stone? 100 steps I have to climb. Who wants to be a step, not one? 27. The wanderer. No path, abysses. Death is not so still. You wished it, left the path by your own will. Now remain cool and clear, O stranger, for you are lost if you believe in danger. 28. Consolation for beginners. See the child lost among swine. Helpless, he can't even talk. He was always crying. Will he ever learn to walk? Don't despair. Soon he will treat you to dances. It is said, once he can stand on his feet, he will soon stand on his head. 29. The egoism of the stars. If I did not, a rolling cask, keep turning endlessly, I ask, how would I keep from burning when I run after the blazing sun? 30. The neighbor. I do not love my neighbor near, but wish he were high up and far. How else could he become my star? I also will use that as a cross-reference to, where are we talking about? How man does not really love his neighbor. I think that was The Adolescent. Yeah. I'm going to go with The Adolescent. That's my guess. But yeah, so I'm going to put those ideas together. And anyways, so yeah, that's the first 30. That's my hi, here's Nietzsche. Hope you dig it. Heyo. I'm also two-faced right now. Again, can I match it? What's the right angle for this? What's the right angle for this? Yeah, so there we go. Nietzsche. That's the hello to him. Here's his poetry. I think it's pretty. I think it's enjoyable. I like it. Anyways, here's the boys. So, Flight Patterns. We covered them on the show before. I reached out to them and asked if I could feature their music on the podcast, and they said yeah. We'd love it if you played our stuff on the show. So I'm gonna be a dickhead, and I'm gonna play a live set. Because I know this might not be what you guys think is the best example of your sound, because maybe it's not as clean as the studio stuff, but I love it, and I think it's a great atmosphere. So, anyways, here is Flight Patterns at the Spaghetti Palace. And I hope you fucking love it.
Cindy, tell everyone to come down. Unless they don't want to. Let's forget everything we said, everything we did. Best friends, better halves.
They suck.
Alright, screw them. We're called Flight Patterns. The song's called Drawlinger.
Something
too quiet. I'm too loud. Alright. I'll turn down. Welcome to the Spaghetti Palace. This is the second show that we've had. The first one was like 2 years ago. Yeah, it was really bad. This one's going a little bit better.
The charm's off the chart. The charm is off the charts, boys. God. Fuck yeah. 10 out of 10.
Next song is, I don't even know what it's called.
Oh. Fuck yeah.
I wish that you had stayed when I asked you to. I wish my lungs didn't hurt,
but they sure do.
every time I breathe, I'm reminded of how none of this will ever work. I've been talking to Molly, 'cause I think I'm realizing that nothing ever stays the same. No matter how bad we want it, not the way that you're handling this one, not the way that it was. Woven together like that cardigan we at that garage sale last summer. It's a bummer. 'Cause you'll never know how much this feels coming. There is no montage, just a repose, and I'm burying the ghost. As my nights go into mornings, I wake up fucking sore. And everything I think of, and all the people
I miss the most.
But the sentiment remains the same. I think
I'd rather die with you. I think I'd rather die with you. I think I'd rather die with you. I think I'd rather die with you. I think I'd rather die with you.
Yeah.
Love you boys. Love this band. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Woo! Anyways. So that was Flight Patterns. That was a great show. It was a great show. I love them. I sung along a little bit cringy. I don't care. Well, fucking vetted emo kid, bro. You know, I live my life for this shit. Anyways, yeah, great. This is on the Maxo channel. Find this. Go like it. I like it. And then we got running shoes. So
And it's free. Running shoes.
these guys are
Six,
Grand Rapids fans.
6.
Also got a lot of love. Lot of love.
The EP is called Modern Me. You can get it for free on there.
Real talk that we covered them in the show before. A lot of fun. A lot of just you know, this is right. It's right. Go enjoy yourself. This is Midwest emo. All this is just Michigan emo shit. I don't know. It's a pretty insular part of the show. Just enjoy yourself. Garrett Cabello uploaded this. I assume he's the guy who filmed it. It's Running Shoes. They're a defunct band. I reached out to them on Facebook and asked for permission. I don't know how to reach them, but I hope that this is chill that I showed this live show. Garrett, I also hope it's chill. Let me just. Hey, dude. Used this in my show. Love your stuff. Love your channel and this band. Thanks. It's posting. Hey, dude. Today. Cool. I feel like that's right. Right, we tried. Anyways. Back
Song is you know it, you should help us out.
They just look so rad.
Thank you. This is our last song. Thank you for Garrett and Casey for booking the show and putting it on. It's really cool. And yeah, and all the other bands, of course, for playing. That's really cool.
Thank you, I like that.
You got
what, 6 inches off the ground?
Alright, well, which one are we doing? Oh yeah. I like this song.
My guitar is like fucking famous to me in my household because I overplayed this fucking song. All my friends have heard this song a million
But I can't
hope any of this audio is captured. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Because I was wearing headphones. Fuck my life. Fuck yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome band from Grand Rapids. Love these guys. This was 2013. Very, very big. Very big to the sound. Very big to the scene. I gotta go and post and re-add audio because when I plugged in my headphones, it turned the audio on the computer off. Isn't it just all fucking lovely, dude? I love running a show. Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe, please. It really helps out the channel. Really appreciate you viewing. Really appreciate you hanging out and listening to some bands with me and learning some stuff. Let's change the world, guys. Let's do it. Happy week number 2. We'll be back next week. We'll try to fix what we can, but obviously we're not above shooting with what we got. Anyways, this has been Karhlyle Fletcher. This is High Lit. See you again next week. Have a nice May 28th. See ya.